I am the great mighty Pooh, and I'm going to throw my
Now, if fashion is the true endgame in Warframe, then this fashion for Follie is the shit. Quite feckin' literally. Now, Warframe's newest frame, Follie, might be one of the most unique Warframes we've ever had added into the game. She's not going to be to everyone's liking, we can already tell by the comments from some of the dev streams on my dev stream recap, where people don't like the visual design of Follie, but if you colour her brown with a little bit of green from an ephemera, you can make her look like a giant poo monster. So thank you very much for that, Reddit. Now, she's not just another frame built around raw damage, armor strip, room nuking. Follie has utility, crowd control support, and that creative nonsense all rolled into one. She is a frame that turns sketches into battlefield utility tools, and that alone makes her stand out from almost everything else in our roster. Now, if you want to get your hands on Follie, her main blueprint and her component blueprints can be farmed in the new Follie's Hunt game mode on Vesper Relay. Or you can buy them off Aspirant Zorba in relays for a new resource called Atramentum, which you can also get from farming the new game mode Follie's Hunt. You can fast travel to Zorba once you enter the relay. Now, Atramentum is basically the pity system currency. So you can grab Follie from the market either if you want to just drop platinum and don't want to go through maybe the pain of trying to farm her in the new Follie's Hunt game mode. Now, I played some of Follie's Hunt last night, and if I'm being 100% honest, it wasn't a fun game mode. They patched it right after I finished the mission, typical, and said they're taking all feedback on board to make it a much more enjoyable experience, because that's what they want it to be, which thank feck, because again, brutal honesty, it feckin' sucked. Now, I'm going to go through her passive and her abilities. The video, of course, is going to be timestamped, so you can skip past this if you already know it. Follie's passive is called Ink Blot, and this is a thing that ties her whole kit together. Follie's abilities will coat enemies in ink, which will then slow them by up to 50% for a few seconds. On top of that, enemies affected by that Ink Blot have a chance to drop health and energy orbs. So straight away, her passive brings built-in crowd control with that slow, and a bit of sustain for those health and energy orbs, which of course are going to bounce off equilibrium if you have it equipped in your mod slot. Now, her first ability is called Forced Perspective, and this is basically her mobility tool and her safety net in one. Follie will drop through the ground and reappear wherever your aiming reticle was, and while she's doing that, she will be invulnerable. Now, when she lands, she will splash ink onto nearby enemies and also apply Ink Blot, while the ability itself also cleanses her of status effects. Now, this is your repositioning tool, your escape button, your, I guess, maybe your engagement tool if you want to jump into a group of enemies, and another way to keep her spreading her passive around. It is a really, really good ability, and when you use it in combination with shield gating from that invincibility shield window that you get whenever your shield breaks, on top of the invincibility she gets from casting this ability, she is very hard to kill. Now, then you go to her second ability, which is her Shadowgraph, her notebook, and this is where Follie goes from being just an interesting Warframe to being what the feck. Shadowgraph basically lets her pull objects out of her sketchbook and bring them to life in missions as actual usable tools. You hold the ability down and it will bring up a wheel, which will allow you to basically pick whichever item you want and summon it into the mission. If I'm being honest, pulling up that wheel and having to scroll around or cycle through these abilities is a little bit slow and a little bit clunky, and it has reminded me just why I have keybound my gear wheel, and I really want to be able to keybind this as well. Now, once you have an item picked on her Shadowgraph, you can just tap that ability again and again to keep casting the same thing in all over again. Her damage summons will scale off enemy health, which means they deal consistent damage all of the time, and the amount of stuff that she can summon is absolutely ridiculous. She can summon explosive barrels, arc traps, Thermian RPG, elemental amphors, like I said, which will spread cold damage, but all of these items will also scale off enemy health. Death orbs, which will spread radiation around. She can give random buffs, she can give universal ammo, she can even drop launch pads, and she can summon life support for survival, power cells for excavation, defense capsules to draw aggro, and even conduit keys for disruption missions. So she feels less like a standard Warframe and more like an actual dev mode, which plenty of people have said since she was first showcased on that dev stream. Now, her third ability is Self-Portrait, and this is her subsume ability if you want to put this onto other Warframes. Follie creates an ink clone that absorbs damage dealt to her and nearby allies, while she also spreads a puddle beneath that clone. Enemies that die inside that puddle will cause the clone of Follie to grow in size and the puddle as well. So this ability will give her damage reduction of up to 90%, and it will also grow in size the longer that you can keep the fight on top of the ink puddle that spreads out underneath it. Now, her fort ability is called Plein Air, and this one is stupid in the best possible way. Follie will tie nearby enemies to floating balloons. She will coat them in ink blot. She will leave them hanging there like some kind of cursed carnival decoration. Then, when you pop the balloons, those enemies will come crashing back down to the ground. It will cause splash damage and spread ink onto nearby enemies. So, it's a crowd control ability, but it's one that will strip enemies of their armor or defenses, and it will spread her passive all over again, all over those enemies. And if you color the balloons brown, they do look like big floating shit bubbles. On top of that, you can actually bounce on top of the balloons if you don't want to shoot them, which is a little bit of added fun, kind of like Noko's mushrooms. So Follie looks like one of the most unique frames we've had in a long time, right? She's weird, she is very creative, and honestly she is fun, but like I said at the start of the video, she won't be to everyone's liking. Her second ability and opening that book is probably my biggest gripe. On top of that, they kind of reduced the damage of her ultimate from what it was on the dev stream by so much now that it's easily the best ability to take off her if you want to put something else on. And I don't think ultimate abilities should be the automatic choice to subsume off. That should be one of the abilities that you should always want to keep on. Now, this is my Follie build, so it is 6 former. Ignore the fact that it's Omni former, okay? You can use whatever former you want. I just had an excess amount of them lying around. Brief Respite, Augur Message, and of course Arcane Aegis are going to help me with, I guess, survivability for my shield and shield gate. But also her first ability gives you a window of invincibility when you cast it, so that's also a good way to clear your status, and I guess an oh shit button. Adaptation is also going to add up 90% to damage resistance of certain status elements. Then I've got my Prime Sure-Footed to get me off my ass, or to stop me from being knocked on my ass. I've got Overextended for range, Prime Flow for energy pool, Continuity for duration, Augur Message for duration as well, but you could put Equilibrium in here if you want to. I have got a purple Equilibrium Archon shard, which is why I don't have it in my build. Then I've gone for Blind Rage, more power strength, Umbral Intensify, more power strength, and Archon Stretch for range, but also for energy regen, since her second ability does put down those arc traps, which will zap a lot of enemies and will fill up your energy pool very quickly. On top of this, I've got Molt Augmented for more ability strength. Now, if you wanted to, you could drop out Adaptation and you could put Catalyzing Shields in here if you wanted to work more into the shield gating side of things. But overall, I've gone for about 200% duration, I've gone for about 235% range, and almost 200% power strength as well, which is going to be boosted by Molt Augmented. So her main stat is basically range, but I wanted to have a little bit in strength and a little bit in duration, which is why I've gone for the Archon shards I've gone for, which is basically 1 for casting speed, 1 for parkour velocity, this purple one for energy and health equilibrium effect. Then I've gone for 1 ability strength and I've gone for 1 duration just to balance it out, but you could use whatever you want to instead of those 2 red. This basically allows me to have any build I want and to have a decent amount of duration, range or strength. On the Nervos build, if you wanted to, Arcane Eruption, considering her passive, will see you dropping a lot of energy orbs. Arcane Eruption is quite funny and will lean into, I guess, the clown theme that she has, because whenever you pick up an energy orb, it will instantly knock all enemies on their ass, which is quite funny as well. Now, in terms of subsumes, I do have the Nervos on here for the Tesla bank, so that I can spread more electricity and more explosions. I've got 1 with Roar, so I've got 1 with Nullstar and 1 with Araxia's Webs, which I'm just kind of trying out at the minute as well. Nullstar just for the augment to spread heat around the place as well. So let me know in the comment section below what you're going to decide on using for the subsume. Now, whether you subsume off for fourth ability or whether you subsume off for first ability is entirely up to you. The first one would probably be foolish simply because you're getting rid of that invincibility window and you're getting rid of that cleanse or status effects and that mobility tool as well. Whereas her fourth ability is basically just a crowd control mixed in with an armor strip. The damage they do when they fall isn't huge. It's not what it was on the dev stream, so if you wanted to, that would be the subsume of choice. Get rid of that and put on whatever ability you want. Now, if you're new to Warframe and maybe you've picked up Follie or Follie's bundle in the market because you don't have time to farm her because of work commitments, because of college, because of family, and basically you just wanted to get your hands on it because you liked her design, then this would be the default beginner's setup for pretty much every new Warframe in the game until you get your Archon mods, your Primed mods, and any of the other mods that are going to make your build start to reach the heights that a lot of veterans have with their setups. You basically want a nice balance between all of the stats, duration, efficiency, range, and of course strength as well. No negatives until you get all of these mods that are going to allow you, and of course the arcanes, that are going to allow your build to finally take shape. So that's my Follie. Let me know in the comment section below what you think of her once you get your hands on her, once you have her built. What abilities have you subsumed onto your Follie? Have a great day, have a great week, and as always, thanks for watching.